Okay. Oh no, we lost Arinze. Okay. Anyway, hi everyone. Welcome to this special edition of Talking Talent. Our topic today is racing towards diversity, breaking systemic barriers for Black people of color in startups. Now, for all of our first-time joiners, thank you so much for joining us today. And if you have been participating in our previous events, welcome back and thank you again for joining us. So, today is an important day for Talking Talent. So we are transforming from being just an event series. We want to become a Talking Talent community. And so in this community, we hold space for having all the conversations that we can surrounding the area of hiring and talent in startups. So when you join our community, you get access to our external network of startup founders. You also get updates for any of our upcoming events. And we also send out a newsletter with any of the latest recruiting trends, tools, and solutions for you to tackle any of your hiring challenges. So before I kick off with my amazing panel, I also want to take the time to introduce Accelerate. So now at Accelerate, we are a talent firm specifically for startups, and we're powered by software and by people. Our talent partners go into your company in-house and they work there full-time and they help you to find great talent. We also offer our talent partners some bi-weekly training sessions so that they can keep up with all the latest recruiting trends. And we basically structure all of this in our in-house playbooks so that they can have access to all the latest recruitment tools as well. Our key services that we offer are firstly the in-house recruiting service that I mentioned before. Our talent partners come in-house and help you get great talent. And then we also offer executive search and help you with your employer branding services. So if any of this is of interest to you and your team, feel free to reach out to me after this this amazing event, and I'll be happy to help you out, or simply just check out our website. Okay, so I'm sure you're wondering, who is this person who's been talking for the past 3 to 5 minutes? I am your host for this evening. My name is Chido. I'm an associate talent partner at Accelerate. I am a proudly Black African woman working here in Berlin in the startup scene. And this particular topic is really important to me on a personal level because I have been also affected in some way, especially my journey here to Germany, working in the startup scene. And I'm honored to be your host for this evening where we can have an open, transparent conversation with our speakers about key steps they're taking within their own companies concerning the issue of systemic racism and what they're doing to ensure that their teams and the environments there are truly inclusive. Okay, so for now, I'm going to just ask our speakers to introduce themselves and to tell us the reason why they chose to be on this panel. I'm going to ask on stage, Melisa Seymour. Sorry, I wasn't going down there. Melisa Seymour, can you please tell us who you are, what your company is about, and why you're here?
Hi, everyone, and thanks for Accelerate for hosting this event and give me the opportunity to actually attend it and talk about racing toward diversity and diversity in startup more precisely. So I'm the co-founder of Codist. So Codist is a deep tech startup which is doing translation for source code. So we are basically the Google Translate for source code programming. So we go from programming languages to natural languages. And that's helpful because an increasing number of people, developer, project manager, needs to interact with source code. And we want to make this piece of knowledge humanly understandable easily at site. So this is our mission. And I wanted to be part of tonight's event because I'm a co-founder, I'm creating a startup, I need, and I'm forced, to face the challenges of race in startup world, fight for my rights, fight for chance to succeed. And tonight, what I hope is to be able to discuss with my co-panelists about what kind of solution or what kind of action we can actually put into action to change things on the ground.
Okay. Thank you so much, Melisa, for that. Okay, Hans is not here yet, so we are going to move on to Dora. Please, can you also introduce yourself and the reason why you're here today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be here. It's really an important thing I want to be part of, because what we're doing with FemGems is boosting female entrepreneurship. Even in a startup city like Berlin, there are only 9% female founders. So we're in this space where we're really, it's our core mission to fight for a more equal world. And so for me to give an idea of why I am motivated to be on a panel like this, I think, first of all, for me, it's absolutely heartbreaking that in 2020, we still have to have a panel like this and talk about this topic. And that's also my motivation to do it, because as Oprah said recently, you take your outrage and you use it to dismantle this, this construct of injustice. So I see that we need to talk about this, and we need to talk about it for as long as we need to, for people to, to fully understand that the pigmentation of your skin has nothing to do with your potential or your worth as a human being, and neither does your gender or sexual orientation or origin or whatever else, like in this landfill. Yeah. So yeah, I am really grateful to be here and excited to discuss with you.
Great, thank you so much for that intro. Then up next is Arinze. Please do tell us also your reason for being here today.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Arinze, and I am a business lawyer focusing on startups. I've been working in startups for half a decade or so, and was a certified lawyer before that, and decided to do something else, and pretty much jumped in as a generalist in several startups. A few years ago, I decided to go out of startups and start my own business. I started to go back to law, and now I founded a boutique law firm, which contains 3 lawyers. But most of the work is I do, and it gives me the opportunity to also look into other ventures. Recently, I founded a malt beer company, which is called Berliner Malz. Go check it out, everybody. It's really tasty. And the reason I'm here is because I felt like my time in all my professional life, I've been struggling with this challenge that I cannot take off, like it's a jacket or so. And I realized that I'm fighting a dominant reality that a lot of people possess, that a lot of people have in their minds, and it does not match with my own reality. And given the recent changes of dynamics in the world, I believe that now is the time to talk about this. I believe that there's sort of a reality shift. People are starting to realize that, what I said to be my reality in the past is sort of also part of their reality now. And that's why I'm here, and I'm really happy that you invited me to talk about this very important topic.
Thank you so much for being here. We're really honored to have you all come in and speak on this quite sensitive topic. Okay, so hopefully Hans will also be able to join in later on, but we're just going to kick off with our first question for the panel. So we do have key discussion points for this panel, and then we will end off with the Q&A. And in this Q&A, people who are in the audience, you can see there's a questions tab on your screen. Feel free to add in your questions there as we are discussing, and then we can focus on those questions in the Q&A. Okay, so we're going to start off with this question here. What is the role of allyship in your company? Maybe Dora, you could take that one up first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the role of allyship for us at this stage is to understand that it's not enough to post, it's not enough to talk, it's not enough to simply be publicly with Black people if we're not doing the actual work. And this actual work is something that we understand that it can take years, because it's about a system that we're all born into. And the system, you know, if we're talking about racism, just like sexism is a belief system that we're all born into. The moment we are socialized, you know, the moment we become part of this society, we become part of it. And, you know, if we're talking about hate and violence and saying we don't express these things, this doesn't mean that we're not part of this and we're not supporting this, because there are way more other, you know, expressions like privilege, like access, like ignorance or apathy. And so it's a cultural conditioning that is and for us, allyship really starts with a realization that you'll be fighting a system that you're part of. And as I said, we may fight against sexism in particular at FemGems, but we're part of it as well. We have internalized misogyny. And so allyship for now is about admitting that we do not know it all, we are not fully aware, and we're not doing enough. And it's about daring to see that, you know, there is a real problem that we need to be part of. We need to be part of the solution, even if we're not personally affected.
Great. Thank you so much for that input. The other speakers, do you have anything to add on or comment, ask from what Dora just said?
Yeah, we'll jump in. I entirely agree with Dora, and I would like to add that in Codist and more general, for me, allyship is about like 3 steps, like acknowledge, as you said, Dora, what is the problem? Acknowledge that there is a problem. What is the problem? Then acknowledge what is your privilege and the power that you have in hand that you can actually leverage to act on that problem. And the 3rd step is to actually act. So once you know that there is a problem, that you are able to understand either when people come to you with that problem or upfront go towards the problem that you may witness in your daily life. Understand which is the power that you have in hand to actually do something about that and have the courage to do something. And that can be as a male, for example, in case of sexism, that can be as a white person or non-Black people in the case of racism against Black people in startups. So that means, for example, when recruiting someone, be sure, and I'm talking as a French person here, be sure that you don't like hide behind the excuse of I recruit only based on talent, but I only look into like engineering schools made of only white people without looking into other engineering schools. So that's taking a step back on the whole situation, a whole systemic approach to really understand how you can get into it and actually play your role as an ally.
Thank you for that. And Arinze, do you have anything else to add in?
Yeah, maybe just one more aspect that, also people who are marginalized themselves are also, like, what I want to say is there are levels to this. So for myself, I also acknowledge that I have privilege towards my more darker skinned colleagues. I have more access. I am perceived differently than people same age, same educational background, and same gender as well, but are just darker in skin. And this is something that I myself have to acknowledge. And I think, as the other speakers already mentioned, this is the first step to actually changing anything. Just acknowledging that you are not playing with the same rules, right? That other people have different rules, they have different upbringings, they have different support systems, they have different access points, different networks, and therefore, when they reach the same level or they reach the same position that you are in, it doesn't necessarily mean that they put the same effort in that you yourself did. In most of the cases, they even put more effort in. And all of this needs to be acknowledged. I think it's really critical if when someone brings up a topic, like me individually, let me just go by example kind of, or if someone like me would bring up a topic and say, hey, I don't want to be treated this way in the work environment, then it's really tricky for the other person to acknowledge that or to take this as constructive criticism, because the other person might also think that I'm trying to gain some benefits out of this, that I'm bringing this up because I want to better my position in the company. So the competition that is behind all of this in the company environment will hinder the other person to actually look at it as an actual call for help, right? And that's where allyship comes in. Yeah. So it's not me who should bring up injustice. It's not me who should bring up that I feel hurt or I don't want to be treated that way. It should be an ally. It should be an external person who sees it the same way and helps me change the reality of the person that I'm approaching, the reality of the person that I'm trying to change. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. We do. Oh, do you have something to add?
Oh no, that's good for me.
Okay. No, I really agree with what you're saying, Arinze, and we shouldn't have to feel like we are, it's wrong for us to bring up something that we're not comfortable with in the workplace, as a Black person of color. It shouldn't even get to that point where I feel like I have to say, that's not okay. We should all be aware. There's so much information now, especially now. We're really seeing with all the protests that are coming up in the US and all around the world now, it's really showing that this issue of racism is a pervasive problem. And we need to be aware, all of us, within the companies that we're in. Our leaders need to be aware and be reading up on how they can ensure that they're creating an inclusive environment where we feel safe, where we feel seen and heard, just like everybody else. Okay, well, thank you so much for all of your insights. So we're going to move on to the next question, unless you feel you have anything else to add on in this on this point. No. Okay. All right. So moving on, how do you overcome racial biases in your teams or companies? How do you overcome racial bias? Maybe we can start with you, Dora. Do you have anything to add in?
Yeah. So we're still a really small team of 4. We don't have kind of like the structure or the capacity to talk about teams in plural or like to talk about hiring process. So just to get this up front, and yet we have had 2 Black people in working with us, and I think that is simply because it is the absolute core nature of what we do to be inclusive. I mean, this is why FemGems exists in the first place, to fight for a more equal world and for a more inclusive world by boosting female entrepreneurship in particular. But what we are constantly doing is to speak about our values, to speak about our vision, and to aim and really aspire to live that
Oh, we can't hear you.
In order to name something, really, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we can't
Okay.
see you, but it's fine.
Okay. So to name something tangible, that would be probably the feedback loops or the self-reflection, which are part of our culture and they're part of our identity. So these are things that, you know, we aim to practice.
I think we lost Dora again.
Oh no.
Oh wait, we can hear you now.
So what did you hear? What was the last word you hear? Or
Practice.
Practice, yeah.
okay, it's enough. Maybe we should give the stage to someone you can hear.
Okay, maybe Arinze, you can pitch in and then we can come back again to you, Dora.
Yeah, so I think HR is not my main process. So I would rather let the experts speak on this, but when it comes to methodology, but what I can say is that when I realize that I have biases at play, then I hand over kind of the interview to somebody else and try to get different perspectives, also different perspectives with people with also different backgrounds, and also don't influence them beforehand, right? So while interviewing somebody, this could be a closed environment or a face-to-face interview that I do with somebody. If it turns out to be something that I don't know, that I can't grasp, but somehow something is irritating me, then obviously self-reflection is the way to go. But I think also passing it on to somebody else to do the same thing, and maybe, like I said, not being influenced by my impressions, it's an easy way to start, right? And then after the second interview, you can still get together and join the impressions that you had and reflect on the different perspectives, right? So I think hiring people shouldn't be necessarily put in just one hand. It should be spread out, and also the responsibility to hire somebody, I think ideally should be spread out.
Great. Maybe, I don't know, Melisa, I'm not sure if Dora, your network is okay now, but okay, Melisa, maybe you can pitch in.
Yeah, on our side, we're pretty young also at Codist, so we're really early in the whole HR process. But when we start, I think the first or second day of the company, we actually take a time to discuss about our value and what we envision for the company. And from day one, basically, we knew that we wanted to share diversity as a core value of the company. So from that point of view, every time we want to hire someone, when we put a freelancer, this key value is at the core of the process. And in that sense, when we want to hire someone, we make sure not to be only non-biased at the end of the process, but we are at the start of the process, meaning we source talent everywhere. And because in our domain, the bias, whether it is gender or racial bias, rise at really where and when people are getting trained, or when and where they're getting to work, for example. So when we are looking for people who are making sure that we're not only looking at the same places every time, where we know that the same people, the same ethnicity are present, but we are looking for people from literally everywhere in the world. So we are looking for people in South America, in South Asia, in Africa, in Europe. And what's kind of easy for us is that we're a tech company. So our decision, the first stages of our recruiting process is really an objective one based on tech test. So we kind of put aside I would say the human aspect to start with, to only recruit people, select people based on technical aspects, which are objective aspects based on test. Then we go to the really like human interaction, human interview, and from that we avoid bias because as you mentioned, I mean, the recruiting is not like a one-person job; it's like a team job. So we make sure that always 2 or 3 people are present during the recruitment process, during the interviews, so we can mitigate each other bias. That can be gender bias, can be racial bias, that can be social bias, because I mean, we're all infused with a lot of bias coming from our culture, our education. So what we do is that we cross-walk when it comes to recruiting.
Thank you for those great points. I really like that you're talking about using tech when it comes to recruiting. And I know that you're also involved in AI. Maybe do you mind also kind of branching out a bit more into that, and how AI can also work to reduce bias? Like, what kind of tools do you use concerning that particular area to reduce bias?
I would say that AI is a tool, and that can be used toward or against bias. And we need to be aware of that. I mean, you can do everything with AI. I mean, you have use cases where AI just emphasizes the bias. For example, there was like an article like maybe 2 months ago about images provided by Google Images that was only representing male as a doctor when you were typing doctor in the image of Google, because the algorithm was trained on male pictures. And on the contrary, if as a data scientist you come with this bias in mind and you make sure that the data you train your algorithm on are not biased at the core, then you can create an AI that can help to fight against racism or sexism, for example. But that means sorry, that the person which is creating the AI is actually aware of that. And this is where actually having diversity in tech will help building a better future, I would say, because there was another example with the COVID situation. There was a system which was designed to automatically distribute soap, but the system was designed by white people. So the system wasn't able to detect when a black hand was passed over it and was not distribute soap, for example. So that means that when someone designs a system, it is designed for that person. So that's why diversity in tech, in startups, is really crucial if we want for this topic, for this problem to be solved in the future.
Great. I don't know if Dora or Arinze, you have anything else to add on that point of AI and bias. I think, Arinze, you mentioned also some interest in that previously in our conversations before this event. There's also another TED Talk that you mentioned. Do you have any other points to add on to that, to what Melissa said?
So the point that I was making is that, like we just heard, if a system is designed to serve you or your peer group, then you don't have other, I think they call it like out groups in mind. So those ones are not the ones who will be served, right? So advantages and disadvantages will automatically be allocated according to the system you design, and if it's you who designed it, you're the beneficiary, obviously. And this is also how you can look at racism as a system and how it works on black and white bodies and all of our world in particular. And when we talk about AI, I find it super interesting because this is also something being designed by humans, right? We all know the sentence saying that, you know, the victors, the ones who win the wars are the ones who write history, right? And just imagine if now you would design an AI to read all the data sets that are existent in this world then the AI will basically just read what we have written down as history and our future projections, etc. But the dominant narrative will be that of the ones dominating the world. Yeah. So the point that I was making was, if you set an AI out to learn about humanity, then that AI will completely be biased in so many ways. Yeah, and this is critical. And an example I can bring is, for example, you have in the US you have 50% of Black people in Black male in jail, and if you just read that data set and look at the amount of Black people in the US in general, and you would say it's around about 5%, then this basically points out that Black people, or in particular Black male, are criminals, right? And if you feed that information to an AI, then and maybe you incept that information into cameras that are pointing out criminals according to their behavior and to their looks, then those cameras would more likely point out Black people to be suspicious of crimes than white people, right? So AI can really be biased. And I've heard of ways from that TED Talk that you mentioned, that you can influence the AI, for example, by prioritizing the sources that the AI is being fed, right? If the sources are coming from a more scientific, like respected environment, then you could say, okay, this gets a higher priority. And if the sources, for example, come from Trump or somebody like that, you would say, okay, let's give it a super low priority. And therefore you can kind of balance out the information that the AI is getting, and therefore also how the AI is making decisions based on those informations. It's a super interesting field, and I think it's super interesting also that you are in that field when it comes to HR hiring and just about making decisions in the future.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Oh, sorry, Melissa, do you want to add in there? Or Dora?
I don't know if Dora is back, can't see her, but yeah, when it comes to AI and HR, I mean, I worked with like consulting companies who work, for example, in designing systems to automate the HR process. And what was funny / disturbing is that they were just trying to re-implement all the human bias in an AI system. So here I just like put like a huge warning saying that if you want to like automate a process, just try to make it better. Just do not try to like replicate what already exists with everything which is not working at the moment, but think upfront of like what is the process today, what is not working in the process, and what can we make better thanks to the AI. And for me, whenever you have the chance to design an AI system, this is what you should have in mind, because as a data scientist, as an AI engineer, this is your role basically. It's not like only about implementing an algorithm. It's about envisioning how this algorithm will be used in the future.
Right. Well, this is really such an exciting topic. I think I need to read up on it too, or contact you both after this concerning this. It's really something that I feel will kind of transform a lot of the information that's out there and how tech works to be, more in line with a diverse topic. So I'm not sure whether Dora can join us again, but I think we need to move on to either the next question or the Q&A, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so I guess it's time for the Q&A. So those are the key discussion points that we had for the main panel discussion. So for all of those that have been watching up until this point, if you have any questions, feel free to keep adding them in. I can see in the questions tab, there's a few questions there for our speakers. So we can just dive right into it. So I'm going to look at the upvoted questions. I'm pretty sure you can all see the questions too, right? Arinze and
Yeah.
Melissa. Okay, so I'm going to start with the one by Annie Lee, which is at the top. Okay, she's asking, most often, I, as a person of color, experience microaggressions or small discriminatory comments rather than a dramatic act of racism. How do you think we should handle this?
I can jump in here. For me, as soon as you feel that something is wrong, first thing is not to keep it for you, but just to express it out. So just tell the person directly, or you can take your time to be sure that it actually get out the way you want it to get out. But you should like tell this person about it, because you shouldn't be the one to bear the pressure of is it good, is it not good. You should let that questioning to the person who actually microaggressed you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing, right? I think that, society or environments that we live in, they have we have created a channel for white anger. We have created a channel for for white male to scream out loud and be like, yeah, I'm super excited, blah, blah, blah. Everybody will look at him and he will be like, okay, that guy's cool. He just experienced something super, super exciting. If I in that, or I'm not talking about myself, but if like if a black person would be enraged because he or she experienced an aggressive behavior towards them, then we do not have that channel. That channel does not exist. Yeah, that channel for that person to get some sort of a relief. And that's why most of the times it comes as an outburst of anger, and we all know the term the angry black woman. This is what it looks like in the end when we do not create an environment where black people can slowly but surely get rid of the aggressions that are aimed towards them. There's a funny example that I saw the other day, a video and making it, using the metaphor of mosquito bites. Imagine that a microaggression is a mosquito bite. Like you're getting bites all the time. That individual mosquito bite doesn't harm you, and it's not a bad thing. But if you're getting bites all the time, then maybe the 50th mosquito bite is the one that makes you flip. Yeah, maybe that's the one where you're like, I can't hold it back no more, and you completely flip. Yeah. So what people are seeing is just the 50th. As just the 50th mosquito bite. They're not seeing the 49 mosquito bites that came before that actually made that person of color flip. And I think we need to be aware of that it's not that one thing, and that reaction is not an overreaction. It is. It has some kind of legitimacy. Yeah.
And I just would like to add also that what can be seen as a microaggression for someone might not be the same for someone else. Mm-hmm. So that's really something which is personal. So you should never be in a position where you need to justify yourself about feeling aggressed, actually. So if you feel that you receive like a microaggression, you should just be like realize that, be okay about that. I mean, when I say okay, that you don't feel the need to justify yourself, because that just add a lot of pressure that shouldn't be yours, actually. And there's someone here in France who actually built a company for that, which is to help people of color to fight microaggression on a daily basis in the workplace. She's called Marie da Silva. So she's only in French, sorry about that. But that's really helpful, and that also helped me when I used to work in a large corporate, because on a daily basis, like as you mentioned, Arinze, like you've got like this little bite all along the day, and you just need to cope with that, and at some point you just can't anymore.
Yeah. So exactly. I mean, so how do you deal with it? Yeah. So if that 50th bite turns out to be the one that makes that the person of color flip, then what I would suggest is not to look at it as, oh, look at this guy, he's completely going crazy, or this woman, she's completely going crazy, but actually start asking questions. Where does this come from? You know, start opening up and ask yourself, hey, this is too much. This cannot be a singular event. This must have been something that has built up until now. So let's talk about it. Yeah. So in the end, it's really brings us back to communicating and being empathic towards each other.
And that's going to be the role of an ally, actually. I mean, being
exactly.
an ally can have different aspects, but just being able to listen to hear what someone has to say is actually being an ally.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. I like that you mentioned that, Melisa, because there is a question that's actually focused on that by Dania. Okay, I think she's asking, could you give an example, please, of how one becomes an ally? Should we directly approach our Black people of color colleagues and ask them about the situations they are uncomfortable with so we can bring them up and act to change? Or what would you recommend?
Here, I would say that as an ally, your role, first role is to listen and act if you're asked to. Because an ally shouldn't be someone who just talk in your place, but someone who actually leverage his or her power when the time is fit, actually. So just go up to a Black people, of course, saying, oh, do you think that was a microaggression? Do you think that you should do something? It's just like adding to the kind of pressure on that person. So first role of an ally is to be there and to listen, and to be just passive to start, then active if asked for.
I agree. I don't think it's, this is a very critical topic, a very personal topic. So if somebody would step up to me and approach me actively and say, hey, you know what, I know you're marginalized, I know you're suffering, blah, blah, blah. This is not the way to go. I don't think this is what I want, right? This is also some sort of a marginalization in itself, right? So I wouldn't want that, me like putting myself into that shoes. I think what it needs is that people over throughout the whole environment, throughout the whole ecosystem, or in that company itself, are sensible, are sensitive when it comes to these topics, are trained on these topics, and when these topics come up, that they know where to stand, that they know which position to take, and that they know that I stand for the Black POC, and that I support. Right? It's creating a support system, and I totally agree. It should be something that is passive in the beginning. You don't want to point out. In the end, we all want to belong, and even by pointing out that somebody is in a different situation also creates some sort of a barrier. So I wouldn't suggest doing so.
Great. Thank you so much for your points. I totally agree with that, because for me personally, I don't want your pity. I'm not someone who's vulnerable or anything like that. You can show your concern, yes, but you don't have to keep coming and acting as if I'm a person in need who's wounded. I'm also out here killing it in the game, working hard to. So if you, like what Melisa was saying, if you want to act on it, sure you can, but make sure that you ask me if I even want you to, go that extra mile. Being a listener and staying aware and checking in is totally fine by me. I'm really sad that Dora can't be here because I know she also had some really great points about allyship too. So hopefully in the next event we can have her back. Hopefully she can join in again. So just quickly going into the other questions.
Hey, she's there.
Oh, yeah,
hey.
you're back. Great.
I'm
Dora,
back from the dead.
oh, sorry about that. We were actually talking about a question focused on allyship, and someone was asking how we can explain what allyship is and how they can actually show up for a Black person of color. Do you have anything to add on that topic of allyship from your perspective?
Can you phrase the question again, please?
Okay, sure.
I'm not sure if this sounds.
Could you give an example of how one becomes an ally? Should we directly approach our Black people of color colleagues and ask them about the situations they are uncomfortable with so we can bring them up and act to change? What would you recommend?
So yeah, I must say I feel like I'm here much more to learn and to listen right now. I do have a perspective that I see as evolving, and for now that is, for me, it is really about turning towards myself and realizing how asking myself how I have supported this and what I need to change in myself before I can say that I am an ally for real. I think that's kind of like the precondition to understand, like, how have you behaved so far? Like, what have you done? And for me, like, to be completely on is one of the really important things for white people, to be as honest as possible in this topic. And I must admit that I have not been fully aware at all that, until the Black Lives
Oh no.
To read and to listen. You cannot hear me?
Yeah.
You don't hear me?
Oh, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
You can't see me or hear me?
We can hear you, so I think you can continue with your point. It's fine.
Okay, maybe I can just turn off the camera, if that helps.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was basically saying that it is important for white people to understand that it starts with being extremely honest, like radically honest with yourself. And to do this myself right now, until the Black Lives Matter movement started, I have not ever dealt with this topic as much as I did now. And so my contribution to that, to supporting this system, was my ignorance and my apathy. And I think it's extremely important to just make the time to listen and make the time to read and to gain the knowledge you need to actually understand that.
Can I add something to this
different perspective.
real quick?
Yeah, sure.
I think this is really nice what you said, and also admitting that you haven't reached this point before, and it was like the Black Lives Matter movement who brought you to this realization that you need to kind of change in some way, because I truly believe it's something that we've been looking at our history, and we've just been running in that path that our history was giving us, and we didn't really question where this is going. People had a lot of privileges and didn't realize and didn't acknowledge to have these privileges, and people having disadvantages, they also created some sort of narratives to excuse these or to just cope with the world, right? So we really were living in a reality that I think with the movement, with the Black Lives Matter movement, is now changing. So you can even make the point that when you are an ally now, you're not an ally to people of color or Black people of color. You're an ally to the whole movement. You're supporting the whole movement, right? It's a mind shift that the whole world is going through right now. Yeah, it's not only that individual Black person of color in your company that you are supporting by being reflective and changing yourself. It is the whole world that you're supporting. Yeah, I think this is important to see, that it's bigger than just an individual.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you
I
so
agree.
much. Thank you for that. And thank you, Dora, for being so transparent with your point there about also learning and using this time to be aware of what's really going on. So thank you so much for your point. Yeah, and it's very true. This is a very it's really integrated. There's so much more. It's not just me, that one Black person you're working with. I'm also affected by what's going on out there, the video content that's being, sent around on social media of the police brutality and all of that. It's also something that affects me. So it's not just what's happening with me. There's also a lot more going out there that can also be affecting your employees as well, just by looking at that content. Okay, so I think we only have time for one more question. So I think this is by Diana Diaz Canseco, and she's asking, how do each of you in your respective roles in your companies create an atmosphere where there is a channel where Black people of color can express themselves? Leadership is very important, I find. Sometimes it can be the top where the mosquito bite can come from. So yeah, any of you can pitch in.
In the case of Codis, it's kind of easy for us, once again, because I'm Black, I'm female. My co-founder is Indian, is male. So Black people of color or people of color can relate to us, because in the French context, we kind of gather all kind of prejudices against us, actually. So it's easy to come and talk to us, to discuss about this kind of topic openly, easily. What we make sure is, our whole company is based on the principle of transparency. So we are transparent at every stages of the company. That can be like the product, that can be the customer, that can be the revenue, that can also be the racial problems that can occur within the company or even outside the company. And I think that nurturing this transparency at every levels actually help people to build trust towards each other and actually be able to talk to each other, because being able to talk about this kind of problem is showing that you are vulnerable to some level and being able to share that vulnerability with others. So you need to be sure that you can trust the person you are talking to. So this is when transparency comes into play with us.
Anyone else pitch in? Dora or Rinze? Dora? I think we've lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rinze, do you have anything else to add in?
Well, I think what you said, Diana, leadership
I think we're leaving too.
Key. As a leader, you also need to be aware. Hello. Can you hear me?
No, it's good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think leadership is key. So as reflected as everybody else should be, the leader should be the most reflected one. The leader should feel the dynamic be able to feel the dynamic that is going on between the team. And also when something is going wrong, be able to stand up, right? So what I've experienced in my time at startups was, in Berlin, you say, that casual racism that is kind of adequate, that is okay, that people throw it on each other, but they don't really question if, or how people perceive it or how people receive it. And this is exactly the mosquito bites that we were talking about. Yeah, this can be the mosquito bites that we're talking about. And as a leader, obviously, if you come across this casual racism or these casual attacks that are just meant to be a little bit funny, then this is actually your chance to shape the culture, towards a culture that restricts such things. So as a leader, I would take every chance you get to define the culture and to define the environment that you want your team to be in and your team to thrive in, and stand up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as a leader, it's not only about theory, it's also about how you act in reality. So if you mention that you are against any kind of racial discrimination, for example, you need to show that on a daily basis. So that means that you shouldn't be accepting any kind of microaggression or aggression whatsoever. You should be able to stand up either for you or either for your colleague and be there, that you are here as a backup for them if necessary.
Dora, just checking if she's back. No.
No, unfortunately.
Oh no. Okay. So I'm not sure if you still have any other points on that question, because we only have about 2 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any closing remarks on that?
Just mentioning that Mehmet said we skipped his question.
Oh no. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you can just allow for one more minute.
It was a question about what's your people of color definition, especially in a city like Berlin, Germany? For example, do you think a migrant with a Turkish descent gets into POC as a category, or should we restrict ourselves with US and UK definition only?
I have to say I'm not really familiar with UK and US definition when it comes to POCs. For me, in a city like Berlin, the Turkish group, the Turkish community is a huge community, is a huge group. And for me, in my personal definition of POC, they are in it. They're in it. I didn't even know that this is a question.
And I would complete that saying that obviously I'm Black, but I've been only defined as Black when I arrived in France. So I've been defined as a Black people of color arriving here in France because I grew up in the Caribbean. So that's really important to understand that being defined as a people of color depends where you are at and what are the cultural prejudices of the country you arrived in. So if arriving in Germany, arriving in the UK or the US, there are like prejudices against Turkish people, then you fall into the category of people of color. So that's really important to understand what are all the system and mechanism in place in the place where you live in.
That's true. And I actually think that it's quite sad, really. I think I saw a quote somewhere that it's really sad that as Black people of color or people of color in general, we always have to check the lay of the land when we're moving somewhere or even traveling somewhere to see, are we going to be safe there? Are we going to be facing some kind of racism when we're going there? So it's really quite sad that we have to face something like that and ask ourselves these questions instead of just having that freedom to move freely in any country, really. So thank you so much for your inputs, and thank you to the audience for your questions. I think this was really insightful, and I really think we need another conversation, especially on the AI bits. I really enjoyed that, and I can see a lot of questions and comments, follow-up comments on that particular topic. So thank you so much, and thank you again to all of you, our panel speakers, for joining us tonight. Thank you, Dora, and I know there were some network issues there, but hopefully next time it'll work out. Thank you again to everyone else for joining. Thank you to our to Accelerate, and please don't forget to join our Talking Talent community, as well as checking our websites if you do need any help with your hiring. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoy your evening, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.
Thanks, Chido, and thanks, Accelerate.
Chido.
Bye.
Thanks for having us. Bye.